Welcome back to my channel. What are we going to explore today? The Angel Hare tapes, a YouTube series found on the channel, the East Patch. And what exactly should we expect from the Angel Hare tapes? A lovable, adorable cartoon bunny and the adventures this cartoon takes the main character on. There's a bit of a tragic backstory and some scares, but the wholesomeness that comes from the friendship these two created that was forgotten until now is amazing. I don't want to spoil too much, so let's begin, starting with the first tape. The video begins with text stating that the poster's childhood memories are foggy and that they found something. What they found was a collection of tapes from the series titled Angel Hare. These tapes were found in a thrift shop, to which the poster immediately got hit with nostalgia after seeing it. The poster then goes on to say that this show was a comfort for them and an escape. However, it turns out these tapes aren't the same as they remembered. So they're now going to show us what they mean by this by comparing the tapes with their old recordings that they had saved. First, they're going to show us the VHS copy, which begins with an animal calling for someone named Angel Gabby. Gabby comes down and greets the animal, which is named Francis. Francis seems to be the timid and shy type and doesn't know what to do when encountering new people and is asking Gabby for help and maybe comfort. Turns out the new friend they're referring to is us, the audience. Gabby reassures Francis and gives Francis a tip and example of how to start a conversation. Gabby introduced herself and asked for the name of the viewer and said it was nice to meet them after a quick pause. Take note that Gabby never said the name of the viewer. Now let's move on to the VHS recording, which is slightly different. It starts off similarly until Gabby introduced herself. Instead of introducing herself as Angel Gabby, she introduced herself as Angel Gabriel. Interesting. And after that, she then said it was wonderful to meet you, Jonah. Unlike the last tape, she actually said a name. This is when we learned that the poster assumed the main character was someone named Jonah, so after comparing the tapes and the recording, obviously this must have been confusing for them. But then that's when we learned that the poster's name is also Jonah. This makes you think that the character on the screen is actually talking to Jonah rather than a broad audience or a made-up main character. We then get shown more clips from the Angel Hare VHS copy. Gabby is flying while giving more tips of how to spark a friendship. The advice that she gave is to share things that you like. In the copy, it was obviously very normal, but in the recording, that's where things are a little different again. After providing the advice to share things you like, Gabby's eyes slowly panned to the left, and afterwards she said, "Just like a babe, you can grow up to do whatever you want, Jonah. That's what makes you special." Again, calling Jonah directly. So by now, it should be obvious that in the copy version, it's talking to a broad audience, while in the recording version, I believe it's just talking to Jonah directly. And these recordings go way back when Jonah was very young. And like what was mentioned before, his memories are very foggy. So seeing the comparison between the copy and the recordings must be a little overwhelming. But after comparing the two, Jonah is actually determined to watch them all and remember everything again. And the only way to do that is by continuing to watch the tapes. With that, the video ends with the credits and a sparkle of curiosity within everyone who watches it. Now, why was Jonah's recordings different from the copies? Why was Gabby referred to as Gabriel? Did this only happen to Jonah, or did other people who watched the Angel Hare series experience something similar? Is Jonah crazy, or was Gabby actually talking to him through the screen? Of course, the only way to get answers is by continuing. So now we're on tape 2, and it begins with Jonah searching for other versions of the series. During the research, Jonah discovered that the distributor, KP Publishing, repackaged old kid shows but went bankrupt in the late 90s. However, there was another distributor, Wreath of Life, but the strange thing is, this distributor company has no records and couldn't be found anywhere online. After this, we get shown another episode, but the differences between the copy and the recording aren't subtle. With the copy, it begins with Francis, who doesn't know how to find the strength to continue on with the day because the weather is so gloomy. That's when Gabby tells Francis we just need faith and hope. Take note that Gabby seems a lot more relaxed and happy here. As for the recording, Gabby seems more serious and less joyful, maybe more cautious? In the recording, Gabby tells Jonah that the sun is sometimes warm, but to not forget the moments when it burns you. Gabby doesn't even seem to acknowledge Francis and is only focusing on Jonah. Gabby then tells Jonah that he needs strength during times of comfort and fortitude during times of heat. Gabby tells Jonah that she can show him how to be strong even if they're so small. Again, Gabby, or maybe I should say Gabriel, is talking to Jonah, and specifically Jonah when he was younger, not the present Jonah. We know this because she referred to Jonah as small, and these recordings were from his childhood. Now the next difference in the tape is Gabby telling Francis to never give in to despair, which is the copy version. However, in the recording version, Gabby, or Gabriel, tells Jonah to never give in to despair before flying up, ignoring Francis in order to enter her home into the clouds. Gabby/Gabriel tells Jonah that we feel safest where we sleep and asks Jonah if they want their room to feel safe. After this, Gabby wants to show Jonah how to be stronger than their enemies. She even gave an example with David and Goliath, which I find interesting because David and Goliath is a story about a man who was believed to never stand a chance against a strong warrior like Goliath, yet David won. Anyways, with the story of David and Goliath, it's about bravery, and this could be why Gabby is mentioning it, telling Jonah that they need to be brave just like David. After this, Gabby compared a chair to David's pebble, which the pebble was used to kill Goliath, but in this case, the chair, rather than being used as a weapon, is more like defense, keeping the door closed. Gabby then tells Jonah to go into the closet and to not let the dark scare you. To keep calm, Gabby tells Jonah to think of good things and to breathe in and out, and in the end, Gabby tells Jonah this will keep him calm, even if he finds you. Huh. After this, Jonah realized something. It wasn't always just him and his mom, and that's where the video ends. Who's he? Clearly someone that isn't good to Jonah if he needs to barricade himself in his room. Speaking of which, it seems like Gabby is like Jonah's guardian angel. Gabby wants to keep Jonah safe and is speaking to him directly to ensure that he'll be protected thanks to their advice given. So Gabby or Gabriel isn't a threat. Of course, we don't know who Jonah is being protected from, but if I had to guess, maybe his father. The only information we got was a he pronoun, and Jonah mentioned that he only remembers his time with his mother, so maybe some memories about his father were blocked, but now it's getting sparked up again. Of course, we won't know until we continue. The next video begins with Jonah telling us that everyone has scars. Jonah's scars, according to his mother, came from horseplay as a child, but Jonah doesn't know what to believe. If it wasn't from horseplay, this could be hinting to the fact that Jonah was abused as a child. So maybe the scars that Jonah has came from his father. Freaking asshole. Anyways, Jonah's going to show us another episode and apparently she breaks character. I'm guessing this is referring to Gabby. The recording starts off normal with Gabby talking to Francis until Gabby's eyes shift away, with a worrying expression before looking at the viewer, Jonah, and saying, "Not once if he's not coming back for a while." Could be referring to the father. Gabby then continues to tell Jonah that he's brave and one of God's strong children. She then asks Jonah if he remembers what to do when afraid. At this point, it's obvious that Gabby is directly talking to Jonah and instructed him to grab something from the table that was heavy. Jonah was then instructed to take it apart and to hide the pieces. Hide them somewhere where no one can use them for harm. So Jonah, at the time of the recording, was going to hide it in the kitchen until Gabby told Jonah that it wouldn't be a good hiding spot, and neither would Jonah's toy box. Eventually, they found a hiding spot and it had something to do with a book being able to block its view. And it's also likely somewhere high up because younger Jonah had to climb up something. Now Gabby returns to her usual position where she's meant to be in the episode and told Jonah that she will always be his warrior and hopes weapons don't need to be drawn, but she will still be there if needed because she's Jonah's guardian angel. Now Jonah doesn't remember any of this now that he's older, so watching these tapes must have been overwhelming like I mentioned before, but it's also causing some memories to spark back here and there in his mind. And Jonah even questioned where his supervision was. Why does he have no one watching him with the moments he's with Gabby? And I also wonder what exactly was hidden. Obviously, if I had to guess, it's probably a weapon that could be taken apart into pieces, and it was heavy, but many things could be heavy to a child. My first suspicion is maybe a gun? I doubt Jonah can take apart a blade or a bat or some type of melee weapon, so I'm assuming it has to be that. And a gun is small enough to hide behind a book, so what else could it be? Speaking of which, I'm also suspecting that potentially the hiding spot is a bookshelf, and maybe the top shelf, and that could explain why Jonah had to climb up something. Now guns are obviously very dangerous, and being in a potentially abusive household, Gabby wants to remove that from the equation to ensure that Jonah would be safe. If Jonah's father is willing to harm him, who knows what could happen with a gun, so it's probably a good call. That being said, let's continue. Next video, Jonah senses a feeling of dread that something happened, that something tore us apart. Could be referring to him and Gabby. This is when we get shown another episode. In the copy version, Francis apologizes to Gabby after taking one of her feathers and asks for forgiveness. Gabby then tells us a Bible verse that warns us about lying, before asking the audience if we should accept Francis's apology, which after a pause, the audience agrees. Gabby says this is good because we're being merciful. After this, we then get shown the recording version, which is obviously going to be different. Gabby tells younger Jonah that honesty is important, but she then tells Jonah to go to a friend's house when something bad happens so Jonah wouldn't have to lie about it. However, Gabby mentioned that eventually they're going to ask Jonah what happened, so Jonah needs to be gone by then. I'm assuming the reason why Gabby told Jonah to stay at a friend's house is so younger Jonah would have an alibi. Gabby doesn't want Jonah to lie, and Gabby is finding ways to give Jonah true things to say without needing to create a lie or without having to get in trouble for saying certain truths. Not saying the full truth isn't a lie, so if something bad happens at Jonah's house, Jonah could say the excuse that they were at a friend's house, and they don't need to go into further detail. Anyways, after this, Gabby says we can forgive Francis if we want, though the truth would be difficult to regain and to remember revelation, a place prepared for liars. I'm guessing this is why Gabby doesn't want younger Jonah to lie. After this, Gabby asks Jonah what they would like for her to do. Gabby reassures Jonah that it's okay for them to take the time, and eventually they agreed on something, but the recording of the tape didn't record what younger Jonah said, so we don't know yet what they agreed on. Now Jonah in the present time is looking through incident reports from their hometown when they were younger. The only incident that they found was a flood in the municipal building, but none of the records survived. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear floods and Angel Gabby being connected to religious stuff, this immediately makes me think about the time God flooded the world. I doubt this flood was a mere coincidence. Anyways, let's move on to the next video, which is tape 5. It begins with Jonah telling us that he took a trip to his childhood home, where we first met him and Gabby. Jonah's worried about scaring his mother, so Jonah didn't tell her the purpose of his visit. Regardless, she seems happy to see him. Now Jonah's on the search for anything that's related to his childhood, and he found this. Drawings and a shirt of Angel Gabby and other tapes about other things. A tape about aggression and destruction, specifically a game titled Balloons. It's an experiment to see if children feel guilty from the destruction they caused. We then get shown more tapes which revolve around children and them viewing things that are violent or demonstrating violence. There's a big focus on children's behavior actually. We also get shown papers, one being a cease and desist, and the other was from a company that, if I had to guess, was probably responsible for Angel Hare. However, its current team wasn't around during its airing, and the letter also says not to contact any of the sister companies because the program is no longer under their umbrella. As for the cease and desist, it was a bit of harassment over the employees and companies. Now, Jonah then tells the audience that he didn't know that she went down the same road as he, but Jonah's only scratching the surface. Now, Jonah wants to bring her back, to find his angel, to find out what they did, to figure out his past, and Jonah isn't afraid to take it into his own hands. Jonah will bring her back. The video ends there, and after all the search, it's clear that Jonah is sparked with determination. So moving on to the next video, which is the final tape, but not the final part of the series. At this point, Jonah realized that the way to communicate with Gabby was when the broadcast was live in the air. So if Jonah wants to talk to her, he needs to somehow get Angel Hare back on the air. And what's a better way of doing that than with a live stream? Jonah is going to let her out. But a part of Jonah hopes that it doesn't work and it's all a dream. But Jonah needs answers and it's going to continue. So Jonah sets up the live stream and begins. As it starts, Jonah calls for Gabriel first and then Angel Gabby. At first, it seems to start off normal until Gabby notices Jonah. At first, Gabby doesn't seem to remember him until Jonah said it was him, and this made Gabby smile. Gabby touched the screen and was happy to see Jonah all grown up. At the end, we see text saying, "Until you call again." And that's where the video ends. That's actually kind of sweet. Now, with all the tapes given to us, let's piece everything together. When Jonah was younger, we can probably guess that his father was abusive and caused harm to him. Jonah's only escape was a program called Angel Hare with a character named Angel Gabby, but the angel introduced himself as Gabriel at the time of meeting Jonah. This angel acted as Jonah's friend and guardian, protecting him by giving him advice and just being there for him. And if I had to guess, this angel Gabriel is using Angel Gabby as a vessel in order to communicate with Jonah. Now, at some point, Gabby/Gabriel and Jonah agreed on a plan, and it was a plan that involved Jonah getting an alibi and getting rid of Jonah's father, I'm assuming. As to why Jonah doesn't remember any of this, it could be a trauma response. Sometimes when facing trauma, people's brains block off the memories to protect them. That could be the case with Jonah. However, now that Jonah's grown up and he found something related to his past, it sparked memories and it led him down a rabbit hole of trying to discover answers and eventually finding a way to communicate with Gabriel again, his guardian angel. A very sweet story. A boy with a rough life who was saved and able to grow up and eventually reconnect with his savior. It's quite heartwarming if you think about it, but don't think about it too much, because if you realize that Gabriel potentially killed the father, which is a little messed up for a child to be exposed to, but the father was abusive anyway, so who cares? Jonah's fine because of Gabriel, so let's let the murder slide. That's such a weird sentence for me to say. Now, as I mentioned before, this isn't the end of the Angel Hare series. There are more videos. One being the Easter special, but at the end it was strange because when Francis tried calling for Gabby, Gabby didn't appear. She's missing. Jonah even noticed her disappearance and doesn't know what's happening. Before Gabby disappeared, Jonah explained to us that they were talking every night just like before, and he was happy to have this escape again, but as mentioned, she disappeared on Easter, and he doesn't know why. Jonah tried streaming on loop, but nothing. She was genuinely gone. Jonah thought this was the worst case scenario, however something much worse happened. A new Hare, a new angel, and Jonah doesn't like him. Man, just when Jonah got his friend back, something ruined it. I wonder who this new rabbit is. The video ends there and we move on to the second episode, which is the continuation. This is where we learn the name of the new angel. This angel is called Zaggy, or Zag as they prefer. Speaking of names, it reminds me of the angel of wisdom, Zagzagal. This will be brought up later. Now, compared to Angel Gabby, Zag is a lot less joyful or welcoming, a lot more monotone and serious. And it doesn't even seem like Zag cares to be there. Specifically, he doesn't care to be in the Angel Hare series. At the time, Jonah suspected that Zag did something to Gabby, and is a little unsettled because he knows that Zag can see him. Jonah decided to play along, and when Zag asked the question, "What's special to you?" Jonah answered by saying Gabby is special to him. Zag replies not directly to Jonah by saying exposing what's special to you makes people know what make you tick. As Jonah continues watching, it's noticeable that Zag is changing the script. And despite being able to see and hear Jonah, Zag is ignoring him. And whenever Jonah tries to pause, Zag unpauses it. Jonah decided that it would probably be best to end the live broadcast. But when Zag realized that Jonah was broadcasting this and not a TV station, this provoked Zag to actually talk to Jonah. Zag asked Jonah why he put the show back on and if he's with Reith. If you forgot, Reith is one of the distributor of the show, specifically the company that has no records. Francis hides when Zag questioned him if he knew Jonah, and when Jonah asked about Gabby, Zag tells him that he's looking for her. The video ends there, and now we're moving on to the third case video. From Jonah, we learn that there's only one Hare in the Angel Hare series, which is Gabby, so Zag really came out of nowhere. After the text, we then move on to see what Zag is up to. And he's working with Francis, trying to figure out how to get Gabby to appear again. Whenever Francis calls, Gabby appears, so that's all they can work off of at the moment. Now, Zag seems to be all business and very logical. It was apparent in his first appearance. Even when Jonah offered help, Zag was skeptical, because he didn't know Jonah and declined his help, at least for now, and just told Jonah to keep the show live. Francis, after being gone gone for a while, returns with something that he doodled from a vision that he had. And it looks like a biblically accurate angel with a mixture of a rabbit. How nice. Zag complains a bit while mentioning that Gabby has always been so traditional. Suddenly, Zag got an idea and asked Jonah if he could put anything in the live broadcast. Now it seems like these two need to work together if they want any shot of finding Gabby. So Jonah asked what he needs to do. This leads to the next case video where Jonah was instructed to find something, and it's much older than the Angel Hare series. Wild Hare, which Jonah is going to broadcast live. It seems like an old cartoon detective show, and we hear familiar names such as Zag and Francis. Zag is the detective, while Francis seems to be acting as the assistant at the moment. During their investigation, they discover that Gabby is still out there, but it has something to do with finding a new stage. This is when Jonah realizes something and says he knows how to find her. The video ends there, and we move on to the next case video. It opens with recordings of Gabby and Jonah back when he was younger, and how she was always there to protect him and be his friend. But Jonah realizes something. Gabby made a promise that she'll always be there when he calls, so the fact that she isn't revealing herself makes Jonah believe that she can't. Now Jonah is blaming himself because he was streaming her for so long that he believes it either broke her, made her lost, or stuck somewhere. Jonah then explains to Zag what streaming is, and they made a plan. If Gabby is somewhere where she can't hear them, they just need to be loud. Jonah is now going to stream as many scenes as he can, and so will Zag in his cartoon world. At some point, Jonah began asking Zag questions, such as, who is Zag exactly? How can they see through the screen? How does he know Gabby? Is she in trouble? How old is his show? And if there's more out there? Zag didn't really seem to like all these questions being asked and flat out didn't answer or gave vague answers. And when talking about Gabby, he seems to critique her hand-holding approach. The reason for this is because he believes kids are far smarter than people give them credit for. He doesn't believe a song and dance is needed to teach children. Anyways, at the end, Zag tells Jonah to stop asking questions. It's either you want the knowledge or you want her back, and Jonah accepted it. He didn't care about his past anymore or about hers. He just wants to make sure she's okay. I haven't mentioned this before, but with how attached Jonah is with Gabby, I believe he's gotten a little too reliant on her, to the point where it's a little concerning. Yes, that's his guardian angel and they're friends and she did save him. However, it can be bad to be too reliant on something. And he seems a little obsessed with Gabby, if you ask me. I honestly feel like he needed this break from her. Time to reflect. I understand that he's worried for her well-being and is determined to help her like she helped him, but he needs to learn that she can't always be there for him. Anyways, Francis points at a screen and says it's Gabby. They found her. But it's just the outline of her, which is a mixture of her two identities, one from the Angel Hare series and the one from the Wild Hare series. Along with that is text saying she isn't okay. Zag tries calling to her and the video ends. I'm also going to make a little bit of a confession here. From the beginning, I thought Zag was only there to punish her because she was interacting with Jonah, and I thought that was not allowed. I genuinely assumed Gabby or Gabriel was breaking a rule of some kind, and Zag was there to punish her. But I was wrong, obviously. There was genuine concern when he called to her. Zag claims that they're just associates, but Zag is just as desperate as Jonah to find her. And when he calls for her, instead of calling her Gabby or Gabriel, he calls her Gabs, a nickname. I don't know about you, but usually friends give each other nicknames. They're probably closer than he wants us to believe. Now, Zag had such an intimidating presence when he first appeared, and I'm so used to angels being the symbol of judgment that I just immediately thought he was going to be strict and punish Gabby for interacting with a human too much. But he's a good guy who just wants to find his friend. Sorry for judging you too quickly, Zag. Now with that rant out of the way, let's move on to the next case video, the sixth one. Zag calls out to Gabriel and something seems to be wrong. As mentioned in the last video, she's not okay. She tries to speak, but it sounds like she's in pain. It seems that Gabby got caught in multiple streams. Jonah again is blaming himself for everything that's happening. He exposed her to this, which is the reason why she's like this. Zag told Francis to call for Angel Gabby because when Francis calls, she always responds, as mentioned before. So Francis did. He called for Angel Gabby and she responded. She called for Francis and Sagzagal, wondering where they are. Jonah tells her that they're in Wild Hare and Gabby apologizes because it must be tough to see her in the state that she's in. Zag interrupts and says Jonah is a big kid who can handle himself, then asks if she's okay. Honestly, at this moment, she should be more concerned about her well-being than Jonah's. Anyways, it turns out Gabby wants to help more troubled kids by using the internet. She wants to help them all at once, but something clearly went wrong. During this conversation, Jonah realizes that he's been distracting her from her duties. He's at fault for this, from taking up her attention to exposing her to the world of streaming. If he wasn't so hung up over her, this wouldn't have happened. So he wanted to forget again. He's not a child anymore. He doesn't need her anymore like before. She has responsibilities and other kids to help. It would be selfish to keep her. Friend or not, others need her more than him, and he realizes this. So he has to go and forget. Zag questions Jonah because he thought they were friends, and Gabby replies by saying it was big of Jonah to think of others before himself. Gabby reassures Jonah that even though she can't help him anymore, their time together was fun. She then tells Jonah that he could do anything that he wants, and it was a touching moment for the friends until Zag interrupted, wondering if Gabby was feeling better now. Again, Zag only cares about Gabby. He could care less about Jonah at the moment. Now, Gabby isn't too sure if she's alright, and she's hearing so many voices calling. Everything is different from before. The reason for this is because technology is much more advanced now. In the past, there weren't as many TVs or the internet, so this is obviously overwhelming. With the internet, everything is connected, and now that Gabby was exposed to streaming, she got exposed to the overwhelming connection. There's also less limitations compared to how her show was like when she was just on a TV broadcast. It's difficult to navigate, which Zag acknowledges, but this is when Gabby/Gabriel got the idea idea to have help from the outside again. Jonah's help. Gabby might have responsibilities to help others, but Gabby also needs Jonah, their friendship specifically. So by working together, they can keep that friendship while continuing on with their duties. So they offered a partnership. Jonah, of course, agreed. They can now look after each other. Jonah reaches his hand out towards the screen, and so does Gabby. Gabby was finally restored. Now Gabby, Zag, and Jonah, with the help of Francis, I'm assuming, is going to work together to help those in need. Such a touching story! Actually, there's something I want to go back to in the first part of the series, because there's something I want to change my thoughts on. My first assumption to why Jonah forgot everything was because of a trauma response, but when Jonah said that he wants them to make him forget again, I realized that maybe instead of that, Gabby potentially did something to make him forget about their time together. Forget about all the bad things, which sadly includes her time with him. He might be seen as crazy if he starts talking about the times he communicated with a cartoon character on a TV screen and made plans to give himself an alibi so he wouldn't be questioned about his father's death or something. Gabby just wanted to protect him, so she made him forget about all the stuff so he could have a normal life. Of course that didn't work because his memory started to spark back when he discovered Angel Hare again. But it's fine because we got a happy ending and they're friends again. And who knows, maybe there will be more to see in the future. Now let's summarize everything. A boy with a guardian angel who took the vessel of a cartoon character in order to communicate with that boy, and protected him from an abusive father and potentially caused the father's death. I could be wrong about this, but when they mentioned a flood, maybe Gabriel caused the flood because I doubt Gabriel would make Jonah kill his father. And I don't know if Gabriel was allowed to pop into existence and just murder the father, so I'm assuming it was the flood. Then again, I don't know about that because then why was an alibi needed? Floods can be seen as accidental, so Jonah didn't really need an alibi. Correct me if I misinterpreted something though, or I may miss something. Anyways, time skip, and the boy grew up with no memories of his childhood until discovering Angel Hare, where he went down the rabbit hole of recordings and he finally remembered. He discovered a way to communicate with his friend again, so he's been live streaming non-stop just so he could always be with her. Of course, this caused problems because the streaming world is new to Gabby, and she's now trapped, lost, stuck in the streaming world. She just wants to help troubled kids, and it didn't end too well. Luckily for Jonah and Gabby, a mysterious new character named Zag appeared wanting to look for Gabby/Gabriel. The relationship between Zag and Jonah started off rocky, but eventually they worked together and figured out a way to communicate with Gabby again, and they rescued her. Now Zag, Gabby, Jonah, and potentially Francis are going to work together and help those in need. Isn't that nice? I'm so used to covering series with dark elements that I got so paranoid when I didn't need to get paranoid. This was genuinely a wholesome story. By the way, I didn't mention this in the video, but there are bonus tapes found on the channel, which is a bunch of questions that get answered by Francis. So if you want to learn more about the lore, it's worth checking out. The reason why I didn't cover it here is because I only wanted to focus on the tapes and the cases. So links in the description, go check out the East Patch! And now that we covered everything, I hope you have a good day. I better not catch you dying on me, and goodbye! Like and subscribe, leave a comment too if you want. Peace out!